Sports anime is one of my favorite genres, and recently Netflix dropped Kuroko no Basket in Canada, so I had to check it out. After watching it, I couldn't help but wonder who the best player in the show is, so I sat down and made a list. Couple rules before we start. This is original show characters only, so movie-specific characters are excluded. However, movie-only abilities are fair game. Without further ado, here's my top 10 players in the Kuroko no Basket anime. Number 10. Nebuya. The first entry on our list is one of the uncrowned kings, and definitely isn't a slouch on the court, but pretty much his entire shtick is that he's fucking huge. He doesn't really have any special abilities outside of natural size, but even so, he leverages his gifts to give Rakuzan an incredibly crazy strong defensive game, while also being borderline uncontestable in rebound situations. Takes a great player to even make the cut in a top 10 for a show about prodigies, so it's nothing to be ashamed of. At number 9, we have Kyoshi Teppei, and I have a few mixed feelings about putting him down this low, but let me justify it. Kyoshi, during the run of the show, is pretty much of equal importance to Seirin as Kagami, which is nuts because he's also injured. In almost every game, his injury is displayed as inhibiting his gameplay. Despite the injury, Kyoshi still manages to be one of the best centers in Japanese high schools, and was even capable of playing point guard to a pretty competent level against Yosen. His special ability, the Rite of Postponement, turns what would otherwise be fakes or predictions in real life to instead be entirely reactionary, which effectively checkmates the defense. If Kyoshi wasn't injured and performed at peak condition, he might actually be arguably on the level of the Generation of Miracles, but unfortunately we never saw him at full power. Number 8. Kotaro Hayama. Rakuzan's small forward and, spoiler alerts, the person who I believe to be the strongest player in the Uncrowned Kings. He specializes in heavy dribbling and burst movement, and he's been shown to use this power to effortlessly pass players as good as Kagami, and requiring multiple players of Seirin's starter lineup to put a stop to him. If that isn't enough, he's also a highly competent shooter. While he doesn't have any flashy techniques or a repertoire of three-point shots, he utilizes his speed to quickly make the most consistent shot possible, laying the ball up any chance he gets. He's also displayed the ability to double clutch when pressured, further adding to his consistency. His temper when faced with a better player could prove problematic, but he has explosive potential. Straight into the Generation of Miracles themselves, we have number 7, Kuroko. Now, it's about time that I remind you that this is a list about a player's ability to perform as an individual, and Kuroko as an individual sort of goes against his entire thing as a character. The fact that he's this weak without a team just shows how well the story was written to be a message of teamwork. Kuroko is no slouch, his pass game is untouchable by anyone, and his self-taught offensive techniques also pack quite a punch. After praising Hayama's ability to blow past Kagami, Kuroko can pass almost anyone with his Phantom Drive. The issue, of course, is the fact that the overuse of his techniques caused them to fade away, not just for the game, but permanently. He's also pretty much tailor-made to play support for a once-in-a-generation tier athlete, and a lot of his passes only work for people as strong as Kagami or Almine. How those would translate to weaker players remains to be seen. Murasaki Bara comes in 6th, and I feel like this might be the most controversial placement outside of the first and second debate. Atsushi is a freak of nature and is described as the most naturally talented of the Miracles, but his motivational issues are what holds him back. Near the end of the Yosen Seirin game, we did see Murasaki Bara enter the zone for a split second, but what we didn't see in comparison to the other zone users is how much of a buff that gives him specifically. If he gets a similar buff to speed and power to the other zone users, he might be number 1 or 2 himself, but unfortunately we have no feats to prove this, as he doesn't enter it again, even in the movie. That being said, even when not in the zone, his defense covers pretty much everything past the 3-point line, and he's been shown to effectively shut down 3-point shots as well. Coordinated teams can pass him due to his tendency to gas himself on trying to shut down multiple shot attempts per play. Number 5, the speed demon himself, Almine. Almine, to contrast Atsushi, while not the naturally largest, is seemingly the most naturally athletic. His special ability is just listed as agility, and what does that even mean? Almine is the first person to make use of the zone and really make those animators work overtime. He sort of acted as the original final boss to the first season, and to add to his speed and ability to enter the zone, his streetball origins give him an extremely versatile and unorthodox toolset, which can be used to exploit players that don't have experience against those kinds of moves. He's a beast and arguably just as good as the next placement, but there's a small feat difference that I think separates them, and we'll get into that right away. But before we get into that, let's take a minute to hear from today's sponsor, Raid. Number 4 is Seirin's star player and the candidate most deserving of being called the main character. Kagami has a very similar set of strengths to Almine, and I wouldn't be too upset to hear someone say the two of them are a deadlock, but I think Kagami edges him out ever so slightly. Kagami has the same natural speed and athleticism, he can enter the zone, but he doesn't have the street ball tools that Almine has. He makes up for that shortcoming with his two unique abilities, the first one being the fact that he can jump into the stratosphere and basically float through the fucking air at will, and it makes him nigh unstoppable in air-to-air battle, and it also gives him access to the very hard to stop meteor jam. And his second technique is the even more powerful of the two, the True Zone. Now, with this being a solo list and the True Zone being a team-based technique, I'm not sure if I should allow it, but I think I do because it still hinges on Kagami and his ability to sync himself up with his teammates. And with those two abilities in consideration, I don't think they'd be tied anymore. Kagami is an outstanding player, but he's still only 4th. The best shooter in the entire show, Mirorima. Why is Mirorima in the top 3, you might be asking? Well, as explained by Alex in the show, shooting percentages average in the range of 40 to 60% for most players, and that includes 2-point shots, stuff like layups and the like. Mirorima misses 2 times over the entire show, including the film, and he exclusively shoots 3-point shots and can do it from full court if he feels like it. He's functionally an unstoppable player because anytime he has the ball, his team is scoring 3 points, and there's nothing that can be done about it. I know he doesn't do well in the show and isn't a final boss of any season or anything like that, but if you stop and think about the logistics and the applications of his ability to make any shot from any distance with almost 100% accuracy, he deserves to be this high. It's almost a shame to only give him 3rd because of how broken he is, but the other two above him have a little bit more punch to their superpowers. Number 2 is Ryota Kisei. In every draft I made of this list except for the final one, Kisei always took the first spot, but before finalizing the script I changed my mind. Here's why. Kisei's ability, Perfect Copy, is unstoppable for any normal player, and even more so when he utilizes the Generation of Miracle abilities. He is genuinely a jack of all trades and a master of all trades. From Almine's speed to Midorima's accuracy, even mimicking Murasakibara's size with big jumps and hard reads. This power only gets stronger when Kisei unlocks the ability to double up and enter the zone while using Perfect Copy. If that sounds insurmountable, it's because it is. For 5 minutes. After using this state for 5 minutes, Kisei is gassed and not able to play for the rest of the game, and that's a pretty huge downside. He might have the ability to stomp anyone on the list for that brief period, but the other 35 minutes of the game he's either in his default state or too tired to continue playing. Kisei's inability to keep this up is similar to Teiko Middle School's folly, as in Kisei's 10th grader body can't keep up with what he wants to do and can do, thus he empties the gas tank quick. But I will say that in terms of raw potential, Kisei is easily number 1. With proper mastery of Perfect Copy and increased stamina, he's just an amalgamation of peers that can't be rivaled. Finally, we have number 1. Akashi has to be number 1. I think he's a pretty common pick for the best player in the show, and there's more than enough reason for that. For starters, he basically has 4 abilities that are all on par with the other Miracle's single abilities. These, in no particular order, are a genius strategic mind, which allows him to think of the best possible tactic in any scenario. He has insane physicals. Despite his height, he is extremely athletic and capable of entering the zone, and whilst in the zone, he was able to crush 3 uncrowned kings in a 1-on-3 match. His perfect rhythm passes allow him to push his teammates forcefully into the zone, even if they aren't capable of entering it on their own. And finally, the Emperor Eye, which can be used to read opponents by studying minute details like muscle twinges and positioning, which can be perceived as him having basketball Sharingan and seeing the future, but it's not really seeing the future. In the original series, Akashi was only capable of doing either the passes or the eye, depending on which personality he was in. And when that was the case, I would say that there would be an argument that he is only slightly better, if not equal, to a few of his peers, namely Midorima and Almine. But with the movie Last Game, Akashi lets go of the past and his personalities fuse, giving him access to the true Emperor's Eye, allowing him to not only see the future of his one-on-one target and stunt on them with ankle breaks, but everyone on the court. Combining this talent with his perfect passes and genius intellect, he can calculate the exact right play to make no matter what. The most important part about all of this is that during the show there has been no signs that any of these abilities take a toll on Akashi. Not even the zone, but you have to assume that that one does. That is the key factor in why Akashi is the best player. Stamina. He can be on the court for the entire game and make full use of his abilities without losing any steam. And until the other miracles can do that as well, he's pretty undeniably the best player in the series. And that does it for my top 10 list of the best players in Kuroko no Basket. Of course, with this being a show-only list, I had to leave Team Jabberwock off because they would have taken up like 5 of the spaces, no problem. But I think I'm fine with how the list turned out. If your list is different from mine, you can leave yours down in the comments and tell me why I'm wrong and an idiot, and I will read it and maybe give it a heart if it makes me laugh. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel. I do tons of ranking stuff and top 10s and all that kind of jazz. Hopefully, I'll see you around next time. Thanks for watching.